This is the Bandai Missiler robot. You have a wheel back here that you can set for whether you want to go forward or turn. You've got all these moving gears. You've got the swinging arms. You've got the lit head. You've got a battery compartment in the rear, which should have a battery cover, but we don't have the battery cover. There are shoulder caps that go on here. We do have those. I just don't have them, so I can't include them in this video. The battery compartment, as you can see, is large enough that you could put 2 C cells in there. That means these days, this toy was originally designed in the mid-60s, carbon batteries. So that means these days you could also just run it on a penlight battery. The battery connector in the bottom, you can see, is a single piece of metal all the way across, and the one on the top is a single piece of metal on the top. So that tells you if you do put 2 batteries in there, they have to be facing the same direction. If you put one in one way and one way in the other, all you're going to do is end up shorting out your batteries. And these days, as much current as batteries have, that's going to generate a lot of heat, would probably melt the plastic. The battery is either going to catch fire, smoke, or leak. So you would always want to make sure you put both batteries in the same direction if you do put 2 batteries in it to play with it. As far as I can tell, the original, this was a kit originally made by Imai, I-M-A-I, in Japan in about the mid-60s. Then it was reissued by Bandai in the mid-70s, thereabouts. I believe this is the Bandai version because it says Missiler on the side, and even though it's see-through, it's kind of a darker see-through. The original one I've heard was a much clearer. I don't know. I don't have the two to compare side by side, so I can't tell you about that for sure. But anyway, this is sold in kit form. And we were talking about the battery. There's no switch on it, so my feeling was that originally they brought out the one wire, which I have now soldered down here so that you can just put a battery in and run it. I believe it came out through this slot, went to a piece of metal on the battery door, and when the battery door was snapped into place, see, it's got 2 little places where it could tab in there, and then it's got this catch down here that it can snap into. I believe when it snapped into place, then that wire on a piece of metal on the battery door would make connection with this bottom battery. So snapping the battery cover on would be your on-off switch, I think. Again, I don't know. I don't have the battery cover. This particular toy, one of the main problems with it, initially when I received it, was that the wheels, when it was originally assembled as a kit, were not pushed all the way onto the shaft. They were a little bit far out, which caused a lot of drag and friction on the feet. So the motor was being lugged down. One of the other, what did I do? Then of course when I had it apart, I lubed the motor and cleaned the brushes and got that all running right. The previous owner of this toy had thought that the gears up here would jam from time to time, and there's a drive axle that runs all the way from this red gear clear down to the mechanism. Well, he'd removed that, so that was long gone. So when I got into working the gears, I had to create a new drive axle and the 2 mating gears that are in there. What else? I think, let's take a look on the computer. These are online images right now that I'm going to show you some pictures that I actually took of the inside. So this would be the Bandai version. The box art is going to be different than the Imai version. This particular one had white gears on the top, then red, then orange. Different gear color set than the robot that I've got here. Here is the box for the Imai. See, I-M-A-I. And you can see it's different, and it does say Captain, yeah, it says Captain Patrol, whereas the Bandai one says Missiler robot. It doesn't. This one doesn't say Missiler on the sides. Motorized kit. I think that might be about it for online. So let's go to some pictures I took inside. So now we're looking inside the robot. Here you can see the motor. Here is one of the gears that I had to design in 3D print. Then there's a 2mm shaft that runs all the way down to another gear that drives off this axle down here. You can see how nicely these gears fit together. There's not a lot of slop. The teeth go into each other there. They fit nicely there. These are mating the same. Very nice mating here. And right now in this picture, these two yellow ones, or orange, whichever color they appear on the camera, are mating very nicely. But that's because I built a very soft brass leaf switch to contain them so that they would. Without that, they tend to, there's enough slop in their axles that the mating stays good here, but they move far enough apart that the teeth can, during rotation, reach a point where they jam. So by bringing a slight amount of tension in here so they stay mated together, that fixed the jamming issue with that. Here's a backside view of the gear that I 3D printed. It's a 2mm axle, and then the gear that I put down here in the bottom to mate with the drive gear coming up. I didn't have a 2mm axle that was quite long enough. It was about 4mm too short. So I ended up making a coupler that presses this lower gear and its shaft into the coupler, and then this upper shaft into that, and made it all fit. Here's a overview so you can see the arms, how they interface with the leg units that come up, the gears, the motors. Here's the front part from the inside view, looking at it. There's a light up, like we said, you saw earlier, up in the head that shines through there. It's up inside this cone. And I think that's it for the pictures, other than the beauty shots. But you've already seen the toys, so you don't need to look at the beauty shots. So, that's about all I can add to whichever way you want to call it, Captain Patrol or Missiler robot. Perhaps Ozzy will end up doing a video on it when he gets it back to his place with the shoulder caps on, and might have more information to add about it at that point in time. But it's a very rare kit. It's a very good looking robot kit. So you get that beacon eye, it's got those rotating gears. Like I say, you can set the wheels in the bottom to have them go straight or turn. You've got, just drop the battery out. You have this little wheel in the back that you can position more or less, but it kind of wants to move on its own whichever way it wants to go.